Hello again, Gills fans. Welcome back to the latest episode of Gills in the Blood Chats 2. It's been a while. We've not spoken to any former players, coaches, legends since last summer. But as you can see on the screen, this person certainly falls into two of those categories. Former player, former legend, still a legend. I'm pleased to say, as you can see, that I'm joined this evening by former captain and right back Barry Fuller. Baz, first of all, appreciate you taking the time out of what is quite a busy summer for yourself, I can imagine. I know you've said that you're going on holiday next week, but you're busy at the moment, so I do appreciate you taking time out of your evening to come and have a chat about all things Gillingham. Be a little bit of your career in there as well, obviously Wimbledon, a couple of individuals that I want to talk about in terms of who you've been interlinked with through certainly the last few years of your career, but obviously the main part of it for a Gillingham YouTube channel is to talk about your time in Kent. So first of all, you well?
I'm very well, mate. Yeah, exhausted as most players are at the end of the season and that, but yeah, it's been a positive year for me, football-wise. So it's always nice to end the season in that way, and obviously look forward to a break and time away with the family. But other than that, mate, all well and all good.
Good, yeah. And we'll probably get on to yet another promotion as we get into the chat. Yeah, let's go right back then to 2008. You were playing in non-league at the time, but I think you started at Charlton as a kid.
Yeah.
And I think the most notable loan spell, I think, was Barnet, was where you first really went out and played regular football, men's football, trying to play for 3 points every week. As much as it must have been disappointing, obviously, to not make the grade at the Valley, I think it was Alan Kirbishley that released you, wasn't it, in about 2006, 2007?
Yeah.
How important was that grounding? Obviously, you must have been training with some really good players and some being guided by some good coaches, and also that loan spell at Barnet as well. How sort of important was that in your grounding and your education, and how much did it help you to go on and have the career that you went and had?
Yeah, obviously I started my career from a young age at Charlton. I was there at 13 until I think it was 20. It was when I left, but it's a great club, but I couldn't have asked for any more as a youngster growing up. The facilities that we had, the coaching, the team that I was in for many years. I think there was, don't know how it is now, but at the time we was one of the only teams as going into scholars to sign, I think 13 of our team that was together from under 13s until we got to the scholarship. There was offered 13 scholarships, which is a bit unusual.
It sounds like a phenomenal number, because you hear stories these days and they say, oh, like groups of 20, if 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 make it, then you've done really well. So for 13, that sounds like a staggering amount.
Kind of scholars, or it may even a bit more than that. But yeah, we were together for a long time. We've done well as a youth team, and obviously you're going into the full-time game being a scholar, and then obviously progressing on to be a young pro. I was fortunate enough to do a 2-year pro at a Premier League club, which obviously at any age or any boy is a dream to sign any pro contract. Obviously, you know, is to get there and do the job, but you know the job's not done once you signed it. And as you say, obviously didn't quite make the grade, didn't get to play. Obviously being on the bench and training with Premier League players was a massive experience for me and a learning curve to
So who would have been there in terms of star names? Obviously, I'm trying to think. It's a long time ago, and you know, back in the Premier League, sort of that time. Who was in the first team squad?
There's so many. Scott Parker, Jason Yule, Klaus Jensen, Paolo Di Canio come. So Paolo come, and obviously me being a big West Ham fan of my family, when he first came, it was like, oh my God, I'm going to be training with like a god, because that's what he was to us.
Yeah,
West Ham.
of course, yeah.
And obviously he came, and obviously he done things with a football that I didn't even think existed. But
I still just remember that the one moment for me. Obviously, I follow Premier League. Obviously, you know, lower leagues my thing more. But yeah, that scissor kick all them years ago, where both feet were about 5 foot off the floor, it defied logic. He shouldn't have even been tried it, let alone smacking it in the bottom corner on the run.
I still think, bloody hell, how's that happened? But he was like it daily. But it was a great experience to play with some top players daily in training and stuff like that. You're learning from them. And people still ask you that question now. Obviously, who's the best player you played with or managed to be around? And obviously, I don't never put them players in the bracket of played with, really. I was fortunate enough to train with them. I didn't really get to play many games with them. Obviously, they play the odd game in reserves or in a reserve game if they weren't quite in the first team. But on a day-to-day basis of seeing someone train and how they put themselves literally full in to their occupation and their job and their dream is, Scott Parker was like phenomenal. Like he literally, that saying was train how you play. Literally defined that man, literally to the point of when obviously for me, if that tackle was there to be won in training, he was winning the tackle. He weren't one of them ones that would pull out, which it happens in football. Players don't like to be like that in training, but he was definitely heart on his sleeve. If it was
do you think that sort of rubbed off on you? Because obviously, from a fan perspective, that's how we see you play the game. Like I can imagine you, like if there's a 50-50 on the training pitch, you're approaching that the same way as if an opposing left winger is coming at you at the Priestfield in front of the Rainhamans. You're going to make sure that you get ball and everything else as well.
Yeah, I think definitely that rubs off on you. I think it is a little bit within as you're growing up or whoever your childhood heroes or idols are. I think you watch them, and I think if you really love the game, you try and model a little bit of that or take in the information that someone's told. And for me, obviously, I had idols and as a kid, but my dad was like, if I knew my dad was watching and I was ever to step out of a tackle, he'd probably feel like he'd be tackling me straight after as soon as I know.
Yeah, because like I say, I follow you on Instagram, and obviously you're one of them footballers that doesn't have like two accounts. You don't have one where you do your football stuff, and then the other one's the family stuff. You put everything on there, and it's great. And I've seen you put pictures up of your dad, Father's Day, birthdays, Christmas. I think that's great, and that obviously shows that he had a massive bearing on you growing up and becoming a footballer as well. And that's the sort of thing I think, isn't it, that people forget that parents have to sacrifice for their kids if they want to be taken here, there, and everywhere to go on trials or training games, trial games, that type of thing. But you mentioned heroes. We've gone slightly off on tangent. I thought we would straight away, and we'll try and get back onto the Barnet spell quickly. But you mentioned heroes. So who were? Well, first of all, was you always going to be at right back? Because obviously players change positions as they grow up. They come across different coaches, etc. Who think they've got different strengths to what the player themselves thinks. But who were your heroes growing up?
So growing up, I had a few, to be honest, but as a real young kid, Julian Dix and Paul Ince were the players that I really loved to watch. Obviously, Julian Dix wasn't actually in the same position as me at that time, because growing up until I was 17, 18, I was a holding midfielder.
Right, okay.
And they used to say a hard-hitting holding midfielder rather than a ball playing.
I'm shocked.
But yeah, obviously Julian Dix was a fullback, and obviously how it's turned out now is a bit canny, really. And but yeah, I loved watching him. He was literally all or nothing, but he could play football as well. So I was going to
say they don't quite make fullbacks like they make Julian Dix anymore, do they now? Like this. I think there's an over reliance on now for fullbacks to have to be able to play before they can defend. Whereas my era was.
Because then they are defenders nowadays, fullbacks.
Yeah, I think they are, because if you look at like stats for like Trent or Reece James, it's all about how many assists, how many chances they've created. Everyone seems to have forgotten that, he's a defender first and foremost, and he's made this many tackles, he's won this many headers, this many interceptions. It seems the game's gone completely the other way.
Fullback, and obviously we're going to come on to him later, but Mark Simpson, and for him was, if you stop your winger from getting past you and getting crosses in, then you've done your job. Anything else is a bonus.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, that's how I was brought up, because you're 37 now, so I'm 39. So I was brought up in the same era. Defenders defended first and foremost, and then you let your wingers, if it was essentially a 4-4-2 back then, that they went and created chances for your two strikers to go and get all the glory, and we sort of had to just be, like you say, the blockers and the stoppers. Obviously, you've done it at a much higher level than I have. Let's get on to Mark Simpson then. Let's move away from the Barnet spell. We was going to try and talk about it, but obviously there's some brilliant stories from Charlton and the players that you got to be around on a daily basis. When you arrived at...
Phenomenal, by the way. It was a massive, like you say, it was a massive... It was going from playing reserve football, where it's good as a learning curve, but to put 3 points and it's people's livelihoods on the line, and then fans, obviously, it's them well earned money to come and watch you.
Yep.
soon as when you go out to that, it's a different kettle of fish, and you know the meaning of actually being a footballer. When you know on a Saturday afternoon at 5 p.m, win, lose or draw, you definitely know by how
That's it,
you're
because
feeling.
it's not affecting just you, is it? It's affecting your
No.
manager, your coaching staff, like you say, the supporters, the town, the community, that type of thing. It has a big sort of thing on everybody's Saturday night, Sunday, Monday morning. I've said, how many
Yeah,
times is it great you walk into the office or you bounce into the building yard on a Monday morning, your team's won 3 points, you're like sort of extra spring in your step, and it can only be the same for you playing as well, I can imagine.
so it was a massive, real good learning curve for me. It does really speed up your maturity of the game as well, going out on loan and getting that men's football where you're playing for points. But I loved my time being on loan there.
Yeah.
And obviously I came back and I was hoping to get an opportunity or another contract. But to be fair, it was a real honest conversation when I come back to Charlton with Curbs about it. And he was real honest. He said he really liked me as a person, as a player. But he said, I feel your age now, you need to be going to play football week in, week out. And obviously he couldn't guarantee me that.
Who was in front of you then in terms, because was you still a centre midfielder then, or was you
No, I was
right? So who was in front of you in terms of the right back position? Would it have been someone like, was Luke Young there at the time, or?
And then Kishishev was there, as he could play a bit of holding mid or right.
Bulgarian lad?
Yeah.
Yeah, I vaguely remember him from sort of Premier League years on Sky Sports or something like that, yeah.
He was there as well. So I totally respected it. And I was, to be fair, I was myself. I was at that point where I did want to go and play football week in, week out.
Sure.
After going and getting the taste of it going on loan. So totally understood and respected his decision. And obviously, like any time at a club, sometimes it's your time to move on, and that was mine.
It's almost a case of sometimes you have to take one step backwards to then take two forward further down the line, don't you? Obviously, you joined Gills in January 2008. In the January, wasn't it? It was second part of the season where unfortunately we got relegated.
I still remember it to the day, I think.
But what was it about Mark Simpson? Because it was the second time he played under Stimo, because you was with him at Stevenage in non-league. And so was it solely Stimo that persuaded you to come and join? But obviously it was a step up as well. So it was 2 divisions effectively, and then still League Two the season after. But what was it about Mark Simpson that you particularly enjoyed playing under him for?
To be fair, obviously the move to Gillingham there was a couple of factors. Obviously Stimo, obviously I'd just been playing for him for 18 months before. But obviously being a local lad and always followed Gillingham and the results. Obviously I said I was a West Ham fan, but being a Kent boy, you always look out for your local team, and going to watch playoff finals or games with my dad growing up to watch Gillingham. It was a club that, as soon as I started stepping into the pro game, it was one that I was thinking, hopefully one day I'll get that opportunity to represent my. And obviously, as soon as that phone call come from Timo that he wanted to bring me, I think before I even finished his sentence, I already said yes. So
it was almost a case of, it don't matter what you're going to pay me, what the contract is, I'm coming to Gillingham because I'm brought up in the area.
The contract weren't even mentioned. He was just like, I want to bring you here.
Yep. I think it was the same with Keds as well, wasn't it? Obviously, Danny Kedwell was saying grew up in Raynham. We went to a Legends evening and he was there with Martin Allen a couple of weeks ago. And Martin said to him, like, how did the move to Gills come about? And he said exactly the same. Like, the contract wasn't even, that was like secondary thought. It was just the fact that you can come and play for the team where you've grown up and you've watched them. You've been on the terraces a few times as well,
So yeah, that's what it was. And obviously, as soon as that opportunity come on, I got off the phone, and I remember speaking to my, obviously at the time, she wasn't my wife, but my wife still now, Laura.
Yeah.
And then ringing my mum and dad. It was a no-brainer. I was already packing my boots in the bag and ready to come. So I was lucky and fortunate that opportunity come, because it's something that, as I said, I really, really wanted to happen in my career at some stage. And in all honesty, it might have come sooner than what I expected it to. So I was really grateful and pleased that it did.
Yeah, and obviously it happened twice effectively, but we'll get onto that a bit later on in the chat. Gillingham career, massive highs. 2008-9, unbelievable season under Mark. A really, really good side. The team that everybody as a fan seemed to know their role in that 4-3-3. We was clever with who we bought in. We was clever with loan signings. I remember Josh Wright coming in second half of the season and being really good at Wembley. There were some lows though. You had some real issues, and I want to try and find out about them, because that promotion season you contracted bacterial pneumonia in the January, I think it was.
Yeah,
And at the time, there was obviously talk that it was likely to rule you out for the rest of the season, which would have been heartbreaking, considering we were, trying to gate crash the playoffs, the top three at the time. We didn't know where we were going to finish. We ultimately ended up fifth, and thank God you were fit and led us at Wembley. But you was back within something like 5 weeks, which was staggering. Like, what was number one? How did you catch it? If you don't mind me asking. Number two, just how serious is that? And number three, how did you ultimately get back playing so quickly?
We'll start with how I caught it. They still didn't know.
Fair enough.
The first questions that they ask: have you been around abroad, around the air conditioning, because it could be damp, you can get on that. Obviously, I was like, no, I was in season on thingy. And the only thing we could come up with, which we still don't know what it took. Obviously, my wife had not long give birth, so there was air conditioning in the room. But it could just be outside, damp, wet kit when you're training. Sometimes they still don't know how I got it. It was just I felt unwell 3 or 4 days before I went into hospital, but still carried on training you just think it's got cough and a cold or whatever.
Yeah, sure.
Training until the day before I went in, we had training, and Stimo always done it. He always made us work super hard in training, regardless of what day it was. The day that we just done some short doggies, and I think it was only from the byline to the 18-yard box and back. So there's nothing like mad.
Yeah.
I would be running there and I'd be coughing like mad when I got back, and he'd be like, "Baz, you all right?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'll get through it, Gaffer. We've got tomorrow off." I think it was like a Tuesday, so we had the Wednesday off. And then we carried on, and I think I'd done 2 or 3 more, and he was like, "No, you need to stop." And literally, as I stopped, I just laid down. I'm thinking, I felt like I'd just been run over by a train. It was literally mad. I couldn't really breathe much. And even the staff at the time, I went to see the physio, says, "Oh, Baz, maybe this is a little bit coming down or something. Go home, chill out and rest." And obviously that night, I just got deteriorated a little bit and got worse. Funny enough, I was standing at my mum and dad's because Laura had just given birth. So she'd just been in hospital herself, unwell. So my mum was helping like with me, and then Laura was coming home and stuff like that day. And it was literally, I remember picking Laura up from the hospital, carrying my daughter Evie in the car seat up there to go and collect her to bring her home. And I got into Laura's room, and I was really out of breath. And she was like, "What's the matter?" So, I don't know, I'm real blowing. I've had a tough day at training, I think. And I think I might just be coming down with a cold or something. She was like, "Oh, just get home and get me back to your mum and dad's and then get yourself some rest and that." And I was like, "Yeah, all right." And then that night deteriorated, and it was the next day that I went in. And I just went in to the GP at first before we went to the hospital. And I said to Laura, "I ain't sitting in the doctors for ages. If they can't see me, then I'm going home." Luckily, they see me straight away.
Yeah.
She done a test on me, and she was like, "Oh, you need to go to the hospital to see someone." And I was
Well,
like,
this
"Why?"
is the first point where you're starting to think, hang about, this might be something a bit more serious.
The GP wouldn't tell me a lot, really, that was going on, though. She was just like, "I'd just advise you to go." And I was like, "I'm not going to sit in A&E for hours," because she was telling me to go in A&E. She was like, "Well, I advise you, Barry, that you need to be seen by someone." So I went into A&E with Laura anyway. And as Laura was booking me in, they said, "Oh, is it Barry Fuller been sent from St. Stephen's Ward?" And I was like, "Oh." She was like, "Yeah." And they was like, "I'll come straight through." And we went into Major's bit, and then was a bit like, "Well, what's going on here?" Laid me straight down on a bed, ECGs and everything going on. Then I was ported to have an X-ray on my chest. And then I just remember Laura saying, like, "Can someone tell us what's going on?"
Yeah.
On to see the doctor with a cough and feeling a bit run down. And they was like, "Oh, someone will come and talk to you in a minute." So we laid there, and all of a sudden there was all these guys in suits and that, and we're like, they're looking at a screen. And then one of them come over and they was like, "Just wanted to check, like, you're 24 and it says that you're a professional footballer. Is that right?" And I'm like, "Yeah." He went, "So you're healthy, you're fit and all that." And Laura, I couldn't talk really at the time. And Laura was like, "Yeah, he is. He's never ill, always healthy."
Yeah.
He was like, "Okay, we'll come back in a minute and we're explaining everything." So they come back, there was like 3 or 4 of them, ran to bed. I had oxygen mask on. They was like, "Don't take it off." And we're like, "Oh my God, what's going on?" They was like, "He's got severe pneumonia and bronchitis."
Right.
And the first question is, and everyone says it, and I'm like, as dumb as it sounds, what actually is pneumonia?
Yeah, because I don't know. That's why I asked you.
Bit on lungs and all stuff like this, and obviously lack of oxygen and all stuff like this. So he said you need to stay in hospital for like 4 or 5 days to get antibiotics in you. You need all the drip, the fluid, and
So
all this.
complete bed rest, no option of like being at home and trying to get up and go for a walk or whatever.
And then I take the oxygen mask off really at any point, maybe to have a drink, and then it's going back on because you're like, your oxygen levels are real low and all that. So he was like, okay. Laura made the call to Stimo and told him, and obviously he was real shocked and everything. He said, obviously, don't worry about football, health and family, all that come first.
Of course.
And then I deteriorated, to be fair, for I think maybe a day or two. And in all honesty, mate, to be fair, it was the scariest point in my whole life. I was
going to say, was there, and if you don't mind me asking, was there ever a point where, you know, your life was in danger?
I actually felt I was dying because I couldn't even talk, couldn't even have a conversation, couldn't say a sentence.
Because obviously now we've had in the last 2 years, obviously all this COVID stuff going on, and it was almost like you had something similar, but sort of 13 years ago.
Yeah, so obviously with the pneumonia, it just literally drained me so quick. And I remember waking up I think it was about 48 hours or a little bit less or whatever. And by this point, obviously the chairman, to be fair, had rung and asked for me to have a private room, if possible, rather than being on a ward and that. Because obviously footballers are lucky sometimes that you get to go to private hospitals or whatever. But because obviously I was in here, they didn't want to move me or whatever. The chairman had made a phone call, got someone to make a phone call if there was a side room that I could have. And luckily, they did find me a side room. And I remember waking up in the side room, and my mum, dad, my sisters and Laura was all there. But my sisters and my mum and everyone was crying. But there was a doctor, I didn't even look, the doctor was standing on the other side of the bed. And the first thing I thought was, he's told them that I'm not going to make it. And how I felt at that time.
You was putting two together and coming up with about 100.
Yeah. So that was that. And then they weren't really saying much to me. They was just trying to stay positive or whatever. And then it was 24 hours later, I just gradually started to get a bit better, that I felt like I could talk a little bit more.
Yeah.
The oxygen mask on still. And then from there it picked up, and obviously I was thinking, actually, I'm all right. And then I remember some of the boys come down and see me, like Adam Miller and Gary Richards and that, some of them, Stuart Lewis and that, travelled down to see me. Laura met him outside the hospital and just said, like, obviously he's real, like, weak, and like laughing or anything like that would drain me.
Yeah.
So he hasn't really done a lot, she was saying. And those boys were like, oh, that's all right, we'll cheer him up, we'll have a laugh and that. And I think they were taken back at the time of what I looked like.
Well, how bad you actually were, yeah.
Lost so much weight and all stuff like this, couldn't really talk. But to be fair, I laughed for about an hour that they were there. And I think I slept for about 12 hours after because I was exhausted.
You out.
So from that, it was the scariest moment in my life. But I did. There was a stage where I'm thinking, no, I'm not actually going to make it. So, and it's rubbish.
What was you said at the time that Laura had just given birth? So was that your first daughter as well? Was that so?
Yeah.
Second. So obviously it's not just you and Laura. There's little ones to think about as well. So
hospital 4 days before that was septicemia from breastfeeding, that she had a complication as well. So it was like a mad.
It was just like everything all on top of each other at the time.
She came out, and obviously it was really scary at the time with her. And then obviously it was like someone give us some good luck. And obviously it worked out. We put it all in that the two bad luck there, and we needed a little bit. And maybe it was the May that was the bit of nice luck that we had.
Yeah, maybe not directly in terms of family life, but yeah, it certainly was swinging it around.
I think it was like Valentine's Day that they came back into the team. And I think it was like Rotherham away. It was mad.
Yeah, it was definitely Rotherham, yeah.
Yeah, so I think it was Rotherham away. I remember it. And I remember coming. They told me I wouldn't play for the rest of the season just because I'd be too weak and losing so much weight. And I remember going back to training and just walking around the training ground, watching the boys train and gradually slow jogging. And as it turned out, for the 10 days or so that I started to get onto the training ground, I think we had a few injury problems that was going on. And then I gradually started to feel like I could progress my training. And then it'll come to like a week or so before the game. I felt not like obviously 100% fit, but I felt like I
could do something, yeah.
Do decent run, do some ball work that with the warm up with the boys and with the physios. And just prior to the game, I think we had no one to play right back at the time. We must have had some injuries. And I said to the gaffer, let me train for the rest of the week. And if I get through it, play me. Just even if I come off after 50, 60 minutes, just let me get a run out. And at first he was like, nah, no chance. Just train. You can train though, but I don't think there's a chance. As it turned out, obviously got through training and played. And I think I ended up playing the whole game, I think.
Didn't we keep a clean sheet as well?
I think we won 1-0.
Yeah, I think we did, obviously. Yeah, of course we did. You were playing.
I was like, my legs, everything had gone.
I bet you was knackered afterwards, weren't you? Yeah.
So it was that, but it was a mad time. I remember the game, the date, because I remember it was being Valentine's Day, and I actually are planning, thinking it might be one of these Valentine's days that I'll actually be around, because I didn't think I'll be playing.
You didn't think you'd be back, yeah, of course.
But it turned out it was, and then obviously the rest of the season to how it ended was phenomenal.
Yeah, well, we'll get on to that. Obviously, there was one more low point I want to talk about. Sorry to, it's quite depressing listening to that, but obviously the main thing is that you came through it. But the second one was 2011-12, and you had a very, very serious knee injury. And there was talk again at the time, not life-threatening this time, but certainly career-threatening. They thought that was you done. Was it? So I take it was ACL and all that type of thing, or
post-lateral corner. It was at the time, and to be fair, when I went and see the specialists, they were the first people to diagnose it. I'd been for 3 scans before that picked up, and it had been down as bony bruising, because I remember playing games with it without it being diagnosed. But then it'd come. I'd play on a Saturday, and then I'd be crippled for 2 days, wouldn't be able to train.
Yeah.
Until I wouldn't train on a Monday. I'd train Tuesday, like half getting through it really. Then obviously the Wednesday off, and then Thursday, Friday I start to build up for a game again, and then it'd be like a circle of that come the end of the Saturday.
So that would have essentially ruled you out if you had midweek games then, wouldn't it? You wouldn't have been able to do it.
Yeah. So I was a bit like, nah, surely this can't be bony bruising. And I got lucky that Simon King went for a specialist appointment. I think it was James Corden or something they call him. It was an ankle specialist.
Right.
That he was seeing, obviously, for his ankle. And the physio was like, we'll take it to James to have a look to see if, I know he's not a knee specialist, but all these boys know something about their body, the top boys. And it was taken there, and he was like, God, there's a lot going on in there. You need to go and see like Andy Williams or Sam Church at the 40 Years Clinic. And I was like, okay, we'll book an appointment. It turned out that Andy Williams was away with England rugby teams, so he couldn't see me, but his understudy, Sam Church, would see me like 3 days later or something like that. So I went and see him. And the club had sent over it was only me and Laura that went, so none of the physios could actually come to that appointment. But they sent all 3 scans over that I'd had originally. And then when we got there, I went in to see him. He's like, I'm just going to send you for a quick scan to have my own pictures of it, and then we'll go from there. And I was like, okay, cool. So I went for the scan, come back. He had all 4 scans up on his wall, and he was like, right, this is the original one, and these are all the others. We don't need 3. This is the original one. And I was like, oh, God, don't tell me. You can tell from this. He was like, yeah, all these little bits here are all meant to be attached together. And I was like, oh, okay. He went, so obviously it's not very good.
Yeah.
He went, but from my point of view, he said, you're the first footballer that I've ever seen with this injury. He said it's like a car crash injury where it's like you hyperextend your knee. So it's something that real force that would make you extend your knee, and then it would snap. And he said I could, without even looking at these, I could do a test on you that knows. And he put me on my front with my knees up, and he can turn your feet. Like turn your feet. But one of them, the one that obviously I'd done, kept on turning as such.
It was going too far.
Restrict it. So I was like, okay, cool. I got up and I looked at Laura and I was like, oh, this don't look very good though. Hopefully I ain't going to be out for too long. So he sat down and he was like, right. He said, we'll sit down, we'll go through it all. And then I want you to go for a coffee, come back, and then we'll discuss the next process. I was like, okay. So he was like, yeah, obviously I said all these bits are meant to be attached. You're going to be out for a while. And I was like, okay. He said, you're going to be out for 12 months. And I went, oh, you mean 12 weeks? He was like, nah, 12 months. I literally just felt everything come up into my throat, and I was like, really? And I looked at Laura straight away. She had tears running down her eye. And he went, as I said, you're the first footballer that I've known to have this. So it's a serious injury. There's a 70% chance you may never play again because we don't know how you're going to recover from the operation.
Sure.
He said, go away, have a coffee, discuss it. Tell me if you want to go ahead with the operation, or you can try and carry on how you have been playing and recover like that. But there's going to be a point where
you just have to stop.
Your knees just going to collapse, in other words. And then obviously that means probably bigger surgery or whatever. And I said, obviously that's not the case. If you said I need an operation, I have the operation. To cut a long story short, we had the appointment booked, and then he rang me up the day before, and obviously my phone rang, and obviously you never speak to the specialist, it's always their secretaries. But I answered this call number that I didn't have. And I answered, I went, hello, and he went, hi Barry, it's Sam Church. I went, who? He went, Sam Church. I went, who's Sam Church? I didn't think anything of it. And he went, the specialist, the knee specialist. And I went, oh, hi, Mr. Church, sorry. I literally didn't think anything. And he was like, I just want to run something by you before we go ahead with the operation tomorrow. And if you want to go with this, we'll put it back one day. He said, there's a new thing that's coming from America that hasn't really been tested. So if you wanted to go with it, you'd be a little bit like a guinea pig. I was like, okay. So it was like a Lars ligament. So it was like all these fibers or something, how they put it all together. So it's an artificial ligament.
Right.
He said, we feel like this is the future and they're going to be stronger, but it's not really been tried and tested.
But you're the first one.
So would you be willing to, or would you just go with a process a bit similar to an ACL? You take some of your hamstring or whatever to repair the post-lateral corner?
Because that's what I had done when I did, because I did my ACL about 4 years ago, and that's what they did. They've taken half my hamstring away,
So that's the route I was going to go down until he made the phone call. And then when he said about this Lars ligament, he went, but have a think about it for a half hour, and then give me a call back, yes or no. It doesn't matter to me either way. The operation will go ahead.
Yep.
Got off the phone to Laura, and then I just sat there and was thinking about it, and I was just like, if you said I've got a 70% chance of not really playing again, I might as well take the chance,
and it might increase it,
So I rang you back and said that's it. It was just put back a day or so later than what the operation was, so he obviously could get it all in and prepared or whatever. So I went ahead, had the operation. Obviously, it's the longest 12 months of my life, not being able to do a lot, but it's probably the best decision in my whole career, of the sense of health-wise going out.
Oh, yeah, because now 37 years old and still playing every week,
Never missed a game with the injury, even a slight sore pain of it, and it was phenomenal. When people say that, they're like, yeah, all right, you've missed. And I'm like, no, I'm telling you, my knees is good, if not better than it was thinking. So whenever anyone says ACL or there are a few boys that have had it now, post-lateral corner, and obviously I played at Dorking, and there's a boy that's had this operation like 8 months after I had done exactly the same injury, but he had his hamstring touched.
I wonder, because Danny Lloyd's just done his at us, and I spoke to him before the last game of the season, and we was talking. I said I'd done mine, and I said, "Oh, did they take your hamstring?" And he said, "No, they've done this artificial." I wonder if he must have had the same as you, because they said it should make it stronger, but obviously that's 10, 11 years later, and there's much more knowledge of it. So it's amazing to think, like you say, that you was effectively a guinea pig, and then it's elongated your career by however many years. At 37, you're still going strong and still winning promotion.
Gee, that was my first worry about training and playing on 3G when I was to drop down, thinking, is it going to play a factor in it now, obviously, with the twist and turning? And it hasn't. So I'm so grateful for Mr. Church that
definitely.
To give me the opportunity to have the Lars ligament.
Well, because you might have just gone, I'll just do the hamstring route, and you might have got another few years and retired at 31, 32.
Yeah, and I remember when he first said it, and I touch wood again, I've never really had hamstring problems. As soon as you do that, and then they say about taking your hamstring, I'm like, but I don't want to come back and then have hamstring issues and all stuff like that. So I was really fortunate that I went down the route of having the Lars ligament, and obviously it's paid off for me and been a blessing for me, to be honest. So
100%. Yeah, fair play. Right, let's not talk about illnesses and near-death experiences and knees falling off. Let's get back to 2008, 2009. obviously we got relegated, didn't we? After you came in the January, I think Stimo hadn't been there long as well. It was almost a case of preparing for League Two, essentially, I think, wasn't it? What was the mindset coming back in for pre-season? Was there a case of it was, oh, we'll see how we go, it might have to be a season of consolidation, or was it a case of we're going straight back up?
Yeah, Stimo is one of the, well, he's a great guy and a manager that I really highly respect, love playing for him, still speak to him now.
Yeah.
Still speak to him, even if I need advice or just genuinely a message, well done or whatever, either him or me. And he's so positive and always thinks positive in the worst scenarios all the time. He'd be upbeat and he's like he is like the head of the ship or the captain or whatever you say, and then he wants you to believe that anything's possible. We came in, obviously you're still down and relegated like anything. Obviously, I know sometimes fans don't think players hurt as much as them. Believe me, a lot of players I played with in my career, it hurts them as much as it does the fans. And obviously that did, especially for me, as I said, I signed for the club that I wanted to sign for in my career, and then 5-6 months later we'd been relegated. And we come in, obviously it was a clean slate really. There was a lot of boys that had left, a changeover, and then a lot of boys coming in. And Stimo, as I said, he was so positive. He believed in pre-season that this was a season that we could bounce straight back. The team that he was building was quite youthful, athletic, and obviously I know there was a lot of non-league players or a lot of debate, I think, going on around the club and the fans.
Well, we was turning into Stevenage for a period, weren't we?
Yeah,
Stevenage and Grays Athletic, I think it was.
Yeah, I think there was a lot of controversy with it all on the outside, and obviously players, you hear noises and you hear this, but it was one thing that Stimo believed. Regardless if you were a league player for 10 years or you was a non-league player, when Stimo brought you in, he brought players in that he believed would, one, play the way Stimo wanted to play.
Yeah.
If two, you had to be athletic, and three, if you didn't want to run through brick walls for that shirt that you were wearing, you didn't play for Stimo. Simple as that.
Which I think has to be the bare minimum for any footballer, doesn't it? At any level, to work hard.
Yeah, but if it's coming from the top and your manager demands that daily, then that's
going to do it. Yeah, because you know you're out of a job otherwise, essentially.
Still, so it doesn't matter if it's in five-a-side. If Stimo's seeing anyone walking, he had a glare that literally people would be scared of, and you knew straight away if he had that glare on and you was in trouble, then you knew you'd probably be getting it either in a dressing room or on the training ground, wherever it happened to be. So it wasn't like a fear factor, but you knew you wanted to do that, the horrible side of the game for him, because he believed in you and demanded a lot from you, but he wanted the best for his players and the club and the team. And that was something I loved about him, and I learned so much in the time that I played for him. And probably, to be fair, he's probably the manager deep down that made me the person and the player I am now. He made sure I was fit, because I remember I signed for him, and 3 months later at Stevenage, he told me I was not fit enough. I weren't mobile enough, couldn't get on enough overlaps for him. And I'm like, God, this geezer signed me 3 months ago and he's grilling me now.
He's digging me out, telling me I can't play football.
So I was in for extra training after the boys had finished, like to stay with a fitness guy, Dan Ellis, that came to Gills as well.
Yeah.
With him. I had to do it for extra for about 2-3 weeks. And then I remember like every day I coming in, and as you do, he was my manager and obviously you respected him, but I used to come in every day and thinking, fuck off, Stimo. You're making me stay here till like 4 or 5 o'clock when everyone else is at home. And I remember though, gradually I was coming home and I was thinking, I'm feeling fitter though. I do feel good. And then we had a game. I can't even remember who the game was, but I remember feeling after 60, 70 minutes like I hadn't even done anything. I felt so fit and strong.
And that's when you realise that it's what he's doing. There's an end game, isn't there? And there's a purpose to it, yeah.
The dressing room after the game, and he's walked straight up to me, like squared me in the face. And literally I was thinking, here I go, another grilling. And in my head I was thinking, surely he can't have a go at me. I've done something. I felt like I'd done all right today. And he looked at me, put his arms around me, hugged me, and he put, see, ain't that done? I signed you for a reason because I know you've got something that I want to work with. He said, but in this day and age now, you've got to be able to fall back. You've got to be able to run and run and run. And mentality, just keep going. He said, and now look, you've been the best player on the park today, blah, 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 and all that. And I felt 6 foot tall straight after. And I'm thinking, he's done that for me for a reason. But it was only at that point that I realised that he was doing it to benefit me rather than like all players in football moany asses all the time, regardless. That's a common thing that footballers will moan about anything. But
there seems to be a theme. Every ex-player that I speak to, they don't like pre-season, they don't like running in training. Yeah.
I mean, we say, we hate that, but it's part of your job and all this.
It's the same. It's the same in Sunday League as well. So don't worry about it. I'm a manager and I hate it.
Point, I thought to myself, he's actually done that for me, not even for him. He's done that to benefit me, and then.
But because he knows, he's clever, because he knows if it's benefiting you, you're putting in more performances, so it benefits him because Gills are getting better results.
So it was that point on, I made sure I looked after myself, stayed, you do extra in the gym or whatever, to stay on top of it. And obviously, as it turned out, that was at Stevenage. He ended up wanting to sign me, so I definitely knew that he liked me. So
no, it's good. It's a good story as well. Like you say, it's great to be able to hear these stories that we don't perhaps see so much, especially back then. Obviously, this was before Twitter really took off and social media, Instagram, that type of thing. Where now, as fans, we've pretty much got not all the access, but we get training clips. We see what you guys are doing on your Instagram stories in the summer, and it's great. But in other ways, I almost think like when I was growing up, like now you sort of know about a signing before you should know about a signing almost. But whereas back then it was like, do you remember Club Call? It's about £3 a minute, wasn't it, to find out that you hadn't signed anyone, and CFAX and stuff like that, and teletext, and you didn't know that someone had signed until you bought the paper once a week. But it was a weird season for me, that 8-9 season. We ended up in the playoffs, but we only had a goal difference of +3, which was astonishing. I think everyone else had like 15s, 20s. We beat Morecambe 5-0. We lost Shrewsbury 7-0. Obviously, we'll get onto them later in the chat. There was a 4-0. I'm just looking through the results now. We beat Rotherham 4-0. The week after, we went and got beat at Bury by the same scoreline. It was just a really, really weird season. But at what point, or was there a point even, where you thought this could be our year? Either promotion automatically, because obviously we were still trying to get in the top 3, or ultimately, if we get in the playoffs, we're going to win them. Was there a game or a moment or
the point
training session?
I'm not 100%. Is it? I think we are crept in the last playoff place. Did we? Did we creep in the last?
We ended up 5th. I think we ended up 5th.
So we ended up going. Was it with a Rochdale? Was it the last day of the season that season?
Yeah, because we ended up playing them and then played them in the playoffs, didn't we? As well. Yeah, we drew with them.
Big game. I think we already knew that we was playing each other.
Yeah, beat them 1-0, final day of the regular season, and then went up there, drew 0-0, and then obviously took them back to the Priestfield for that game where we won 2-1.
Yeah, so I remember like we coming towards the end of the season that we knew that we was in and around the playoffs, and we got to the stage of, as I say, Stimo's teams were real athletic, fit, and then we felt like a lot of teams are going to be on the down, exhausted, but he believed that we were the fittest team there was. We could run and run and run, regardless of how long the game went on. And that's, as I say, how we drummed it into us. And I think the last day of the season, the game, you could tell the game was nothing. No one really wanted to do too much. There's
also that worry about getting an injury, isn't there, before the playoffs.
Playing last week until I think it was about the 80th minute. I can't even remember the guy's name. Was it Flitcroft, their assistant manager or something that used to be a player?
David Flitcroft.
Yeah, I think it was his assistant manager that came on, and literally he was brought on to just try and kick lumps out of players, because they knew that.
You're right. You got a good memory. He came on in the 56th minute for Richie McArdle.
He came on literally and was just trying to kick players, and we were like, "No, he's trying to injure someone for the."
Just trying to do someone for the first league. Yeah.
Timo was like, "This boys, look after yourselves," and he obviously was on the referee. So anyway, when we done that and we got to the playoffs and we was playing them, because at the time they were a real good team. They had some good players in there. They had obviously, I think like Will Buckley that was there at the time, obviously.
Yeah, Will Buckley was in there. The team was they had young Frankie Fielding was in goal. Scott Wiseman, who ended up who had a good EFL career. Who else did they have in midfield? Joe Thompson, who ended up, the lad who ended up having a good career at Rochdale and recovered from cancer, didn't he? I think a few years ago as well. Yeah, they had some good players. Yeah.
Lafondra up top, was it? He might have been there.
Who's that? Sorry.
Was Lafondra there up top?
He wasn't in the squad that day. He might have played, but then
Not sure. But they had a real good team and they were strong, like always organised and. Do you know what I mean? Real horrible to play against. But
yeah, he must have been rested because Lafondra started the first leg of the playoffs. Yeah, so it looks like they'd left a few out on purpose as well.
Time, and then we knew we were going back there.
Chris Dagnall as well, didn't they?
Yeah, was obviously a real good goal scorer.
Yeah,
I think he always used to score against us as well. But we played them, and then obviously when we knew that we got a result there, and we come back to Priestfield, we felt like at Priestfield it was literally a different ball game. A lot, even under Stimo the whole time, and obviously we'll probably get onto that in the following season.
Dagnall scored in that game, didn't he? He got the equaliser. He scored the equaliser to get it back to 1-1. Yeah,
we done that, and then as soon as we got back to Priestfield, we felt like we win at Priestfield
because it was essentially a one-off cup tie, weren't it? After the 0-0, it was a one knockout game of 90 minutes extra time penalties. Yeah,
we felt like that's it, right? At Priestfield, this is ours to take. And obviously, it turned out our way, and we won the game. And we was like, "No, we're winning. We're 100% winning the playoffs." We had that belief in the dressing room, and then obviously when we got to the playoff final and the build up and everything that comes with it was like phenomenal. And I think it was probably the shortest team talk I've ever had in my career in a playoff. And obviously, you're talking a massive game. The shortest team talk ever from Stimo in the dressing room at Wembley, and we're thinking, but it was the shortest, but the most that got you up for a game and driven, literally. And obviously, as you pointed out, that the 7-1 game against them in the
7-0,
season,
we didn't score.
We didn't score. It was that bad. I don't think we might not have even got near it.
It was about 7-1, 7-0. I don't think it makes a great deal of difference, does it?
And that was his team talk, literally about how much we've been embarrassed that day and let everyone down. And I think he even mentioned like family, you let down your club, the fans, like the lot, and it literally hit you like a real hurt. And we're sitting there thinking we're going out for a big game. And he was like, if there's any stage that you can literally put things straight, it's like
this
now.
Is it, yeah, definitely.
It was like as short and sweet as that. He walked out the dressing room and we're all like looking at each other, and it literally all up, like roaring, like come on lads, like giving each other a cuddle and all that. So it was literally the shortest team talk for a big game like that we'd ever, but it got everyone. It literally hit the spot. Probably how he imagined his team talk to go went spot on.
Yeah.
And then obviously the 90 minutes was
I remember the game.
There weren't really a lot in.
We was on top, weren't we? I remember us being on top first half without really creating anything like really clear cut.
Yeah.
But we had more of the ball. The game, I think, was predominantly played in their half of the pitch.
And I think we put that point though, that being them and what they done to us, at their place, that at any moment, and obviously they had Grant Holt in their team, that was obviously a top goal scorer, top player. That at any minute, if you don't take your chances or do your job properly defensively as a team, then they could punish you at any moment.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like you say, if you switch off once, he was going to score a goal, wasn't he, Grant Holt? Because he was, like you say, one of the best in the.
Defended so well as a unit that day, and obviously Simon King was phenomenal that day as well against Holt in that, and obviously when Jacko scored in the 89th minute, and the celebrations and that, and it's hard to think, but you try not to think of the final whistle then. That it's over because we scored so late on. You know that.
Because subconsciously you're thinking, that's it, we've done it. In
football, that emotion there, like, can literally take your focus off of what you got to do in them last few minutes. So I remember, I don't even think I run over to the celebration, if I remember rightly. I remember
that weird delay, wasn't there? Because the ball came in, it was Josh Wright swung it in, didn't he? And Simeon just peeled off his man and got half a yard, which was superb movement, because obviously Simeon Jackson, for all his strengths, winning balls in the 6-yard box in the air probably wasn't one of his his biggest strengths, bless him. And then the defender on the line sort of almost jumped too early, didn't he? And it hit him on the top of the head and bounced up into sort of the roof of the net.
The goalie scooped it back out. So was it in? Weren't it? And then I think from where I was, I could see it hit like the roof of the net.
So where was you stood? Was you on the halfway line or?
I didn't go forward for corners, so I was definitely back.
Oh, I didn't want to, make a comment about size and height, but obviously I didn't want to assume.
I was back. I was back, and obviously as soon as it went in and celebrate, I just think I literally looked up to the sky and was like that. But as we was coming in, I was like, right, we got to stay switched on. And I think it was 6 minutes of stoppage time or something like that. That seemed like another 60 minutes. And I remember they were literally piling on the pressure like from anywhere. And obviously, as we were saying about Grant Holt, obviously that was his game. Like he wanted to have fights in the air and rough and I think there was a ball that went back stick so late on. It might have been like the 95th minute or something, and it was like slow motion for me. So as the ball was hit on a diag or something, he's like peeling off at the back post, which was his trademark. And I think he heads it, but he heads it into the side netting. And then I think if I remember right, that might be the last kick of the game.
That was then the referee blew the whistle, because I remember Simon Royce made a big save start of the second half.
Like, yeah.
But it's all a bit of a blur, to be quite honest. Like you say, they're not games you remember, are they? Weirdly, as a fan or a player.
That chance, and normally, like we're saying, that's his bread and butter. Exhaustion or whatever. He obviously don't make quite good contact, and he heads it obviously into the side netting where he is, rather than back across, which what he 9 times out of 10 would normally do, into the far stick, and he don't. And then I think at that moment, we felt like this is it, we've done it. And I think as Royce would done him, took forever to take the goal kick. And then if I do, as you say, I think that might have been the last kick of the game. And then obviously the feeling of that was. What is
I'd imagine it's a feeling, if you could bottle it up and keep it forever, it's one of them. But obviously I remember the goal going in, and it was at our end, wasn't it? It was the Gills fans' end. I'm sure of it. And I just remember ending up riding some massive geezer who had no shirt on, bareback down the steps, never met him. So I do apologise if you're watching. It was me 13, 14 years ago, whatever it was, 13 years ago. And just absolute pandemonium in the Gills end. Like, you ended up hugging people that you didn't know. You was away from you ended up nowhere near the people that you'd come to the game with. But that's what it's all about, isn't it? But obviously as a player, I'd imagine there's an element of relief as well. But to put in such a good performance against the side that had hit us for 7 earlier in the season must have been massively, massively sort of satisfying for every single one of you. And you've mentioned Simon King. He was absolutely probably his best performance in a Gills shirt, and would have probably got on to play higher levels if he hadn't picked up that ankle injury the following summer. But we had such a, from a fan's perspective, Baz, we had such a good team. Simon Royce, loads of experience in goal, had played in, the Championship and higher up. You and John were both solid fullbacks. Gary and Simon was a brilliant partnership, in the sense that Gary Richard was probably the old school one who'd go on elbow and head everything, whereas Kingy was a little bit more cultured but could still defend.
Yeah.
The middle three were all athletic, would all get about the park, and then that almost allowed, certainly from me watching it, it allowed the likes of Dennis and Andy to get on and get high, and to get balls into the box for Simeon Jackson, who ultimately ended up doing what he'd done very well throughout his whole career, and certainly did it higher up than us eventually. It just seemed like and you've already said it, a really sort of well-oiled machine, and everyone knew their role all the time at any stage of any game.
Yeah, definitely. And as you say, the team, you say about Royce, and obviously at the time, Royce had played at a great level in the Premier League, been, I don't even know how many untold appearances he would have had at that point. And then you look around the other team and you're thinking there's not many players that would have played a real lot of games, especially at the level that we was just in at that point in the playoff final. Not many players would have been in a situation like that before.
Because we had Josh Wright come in, didn't we, from Charlton? And he was like an 18, 19-year-old kid at the time. But I remember him being really, really good in that playoff final.
And obviously the size of the pitch and where that suited Josh, I think, obviously it's a bit different to what we'd had at that time. We'd normally probably had like Stuart Lewis, that would obviously...
Who was the middle three that day? It was Josh... Was it Josh, Stuart Lewis and Curtis Weston?
Yeah, probably, yeah. So obviously Stuart would have played a lot of the holding one, a lot. And then obviously Josh. Mildy would Adam Miller in and out of that midfield 3 or just into a 10 as such when he played, obviously, which obviously he was a great player, and obviously he was unfortunate not to start that day. But as you say, it was everyone, regardless of who came into that team at any stage of the season, you knew your job. And if you hadn't done your at the end of the game, then, as I say, Stimo was that man that he would let you know. But then on a Monday morning, it would be forgotten. So when we got to that playoff final, as I say, we going in there and we believed, and all we had in our heads before was walking out that they've literally run a train on us at 7 and hit us for 7, and obviously it hurt with what they done, and that feeling after was so much, obviously, the enjoyment, but it was like, yeah, we owed you one. And
almost like he'd laid a few ghosts to rest a little bit.
Yeah, and obviously the feeling that we had after 7-0, even though we've only just beat them 1-0, they probably felt a lot worse than what we did after the 7-0.
Well, yeah, because the 1-0 was more important because it got us into the division pub. Yeah, definitely. Let's get away from the football now. Let's get to the party. I'd imagine, I don't have to imagine, there was a massive party. Obviously, you all had to get back to Kent first. Is there any stories, tales that are perhaps not, in the public domain that you can share without, swearing too much on a channel where kids do watch?
Not really. I remember we probably
not really.
We probably flooded Wembley dressing room. I know that, with alcohol, whatever, and it's mad because Stimo was actually never drunk, so he's not really that guy. But you would think by how he reacted, like around his players, and you don't see that side of him. When the fans see him, he's that straight faced.
Yeah.
But you enjoy it, like the feeling and the excitement from him meant a lot to the players. I think because we'd never seen him like that. So
it was almost like if you could make him feel that relaxed and that happy, then you must have done your job properly.
Yeah, and obviously it showed that it meant so much to him. And obviously we'd been relegated the season before and everything, that Stimo, he's obviously gone through some highs and lows, even with the Gills fans, people saying that he shouldn't be there, this and that. And obviously he always believed that he should be, and that showed. And to see him like that in the dressing room, for us players to be able to return and make him feel like that, like, meant a lot. And then obviously you look round at your teammates and in that dressing room, and we were friends and family at that time. He built a family. And to be fair, like any team that's successful, you've got to have that as well. And he instilled that into us on a daily basis, that you want to stay around after training to do extra and be around the boys and all that. So for him to do that and then to see that in the dressing room was like a feeling. Then you just look down on your chest and you've got that medal hanging around your neck, and it's like any boy's dream to be able to.
And you almost know that whatever happens for the rest of your career, that can't be taken away, can it? That's yours now. That moment, that memory, that experience, as not just the materialistic thing of the actual medal itself, but the whole experience of saying, I've captained the team at Wembley for you personally, or whatever other players' personal sort of memories were of it. That cannot be taken away, whatever you do in the rest of your career.
No, and as I said, we weren't a team that had experienced a lot of them situations. Obviously, we were reasonably young, or like you say, boys had come from lower down and into a team, or we'd brought in certain boys like Josh that was young. So obviously for a lot of boys, but obviously some of them non-league boys that run classes as and whatever, we'd experienced that before with Stevenage in that situation. Obviously winning the trophy final, but obviously it's completely different to a playoff final in the league. Obviously you're playing 46 games or whatever, that, and then it comes down to that one game. But we faced adversity in the final that we played before, so Stimo had experienced that as well, because in our trophy final we were 2-0 down at half time to Kidderminster, and it was saying that we came back and we ended up winning 3-2 in the 89th minute, funny enough, as well, with Steve Morrison goal. So like I say, you could always look over to him and you wouldn't know if he was winning 6-0 or losing 6-0.
I was going to say that sort of deadpan thing probably helped, because if he'd been a ranter or a raver and you'd looked over his players at 2-0 down and he was like stressing out and, you know, tearing his hair out, bless him. But it would have probably sort of filtered onto the pitch and you would have got anxious and stressed as well. And, you know, chances are you may not have come back. But to see him calm on the touchline and almost like sort of relieve the pressure from you boys to still say, we can go, and if we pinch the next one, we can go and get back in this. And ultimately that is what you did.
And as I say earlier, when we started talking about him, he believed all the time. He was so positive and situations, and that's what he would have done going into that. Like deep down, obviously that 7-0 hurt everyone, but it would have hurt him because obviously he's in charge.
Sure, yeah.
Of it, and obviously in football, it all comes down on him essentially. So for him to be able to put the record straight as such with that result there, obviously was amazing for him. And
I can tell just the way you talk about him, and you've already said it, but you obviously you think very highly of him, and I think that's great to see, because some players just have some managers that it just works with, doesn't it? You can go to, you can play for 5, 6, 7 clubs, and you might have 3 or 4 managers that it doesn't quite work out, but you're very lucky if you get one where you feel that comfortable and that wanted, I suppose, is probably the right word. And for you, it's really evident that Mark Simpson was that man.
Yeah, as I say, it wasn't so much being wanted. Obviously, it's always managers that you play for that you feel like, they want you. But he got the best out of me as a player, as a person. And I think that takes a good manager. Obviously, a good man management and all that around. But as I say, to have that and then you get your players to do what you want to do on a daily basis and demand, when they're enjoying it, to do the horrible side of it and the hard stuff, that's a top thing as a manager. And hopefully one day when I want to go into coaching management, that's definitely something I'd like to take alongside me and instill into my players and teams or whatever in the future. So it's definitely something I took from him, and you learn. And as you say about managers you play under, obviously you take bits and pieces of managers that you like, and obviously gradually you want to mould yourself and your philosophy of your own manager.
Yeah, you want it to be your own team, don't you? You want to be your own man, but at the same time, you're not going to lean on the experience of all the managers that you play.
Yeah, it's like being a player. Growing up, you watch certain pieces and hopefully you put them and mould them into your own game. It's the same as a manager. You learn, and hopefully them little bits and pieces that you like as a manager, you can have in you. So, so I highly respect him and think a lot of him.
Yeah, unfortunately, it didn't work out for us, for you, for any of the players the season after, and we got relegated again, didn't we? In 9-10, we came straight back down, unfortunately, and that was the end for Mark Simpson at Gillingham. He got the sack May 2010. He then played for a Gills legend, Andy Hessenthaler, for a couple of seasons. Obviously, joined us in 96, 97, was phenomenal player, played right up until he was, ridiculous age in the Football League. Took us to our highest ever finish in the Football League when he was managers in what's now the Championship for the younger viewers, and whatever was called Ensley League Division 1, I think, back then. What was Hesse like? Obviously, because there's so much respect and love for Hesse around Gillingham and the football club. How did you find playing for Hesse, and also how unlucky was we to then miss out on the playoffs 2 consecutive seasons by goal difference, and then I think 2 points 1 year after the other must have been gut wrenching. Yeah,
definitely. And on the note of Hess, to be fair, I was fortunate enough on my loan spell to Barnet. I played with Hess.
So you'd already come across him when he, of course, because he did have a spell there right at the end of his career, didn't he?
Yeah. So I played with him. It's funny. I rolled back the years a little. I rolled back the years from when I was a holding midfielder. I remember going to London Road, Peterborough away for Barnet, and we're going there, and obviously the team sheet's names, and Paul Fairclough names the team, and he's going through the back 4 and names it, and he names someone else at right back, and I'm thinking, I'm not even playing. And it turned out that me and Hess were in midfield together and all like that. And all the boys, like, after the manager named the team, we was like, oh my God, we got 2 Jack Russells in the middle of the pitch for us today. And it turned out that we both scored our first Barnet goal, and that winning at Peterborough away, and we scored our first goal. But I always remember me and him playing centre midfield together, and we had a good relationship when he came there. Obviously, he was, as I say, it was a local club I'd always followed, so I knew a lot of Hess. I'd never really come across him until I met him, and then being in the dressing room with him for the short time that I was, 5 or 6 months or whatever it was when he was there, we had a great relationship. We got on really well. We had a bit of banter and all stuff like that. I always used to get onto him and that all the time, and some of the things that he used to call me, I probably can't say on here, but I got to know the type of character and the person that he was.
Yep.
And obviously, when he ended up becoming the manager of there, when he came in, obviously, straight away I had to get away from being the banter and my teammate to he's my gaffer.
Sure.
And I was excited to play for him because obviously the type of character and the person he was in the dressing room, I thought, actually, if he's like that as a manager still.
And I think, is it fair, he played the same way as you've played the game throughout your whole career as well. That was, heart on your sleeve, run for a brick wall. If the ball's there to be won, I'm taking absolutely everything and the ball as well. Yeah,
definitely. And I remember him training at Barnet, and obviously you say probably late 30s at the time or whatever. And obviously me being 19, 20, first thing I remember, I was thinking, this geezer's so fit. How can he be that fit at that age?
There's a story that when we played, sorry to interrupt, there's a story that when we played Chelsea in the FA Cup quarter-final, when we got there in 99-2000, and we lost 5-0 at Stamford Bridge, it was the day John Terry, I think, scored his first goal for Chelsea. And apparently, I think it's true, Ken Bates turned around to Paul Scally or someone high up at Gills and said, I want to sign a centre midfielder. And they went, what, him? He's 36. And Ken Bates was like, he's not 36. And it was Andy Essenthaler. Yeah, they thought he was like some whippersnapper. He was like 17, 18, 19, trying to make his way in the game. Didn't realise he would been around and played about 300 games in his career already.
Yeah, so that's what he was. It was one of the things you notice in training. He was literally be under a mile an hour and tearing around. And if his team were losing in 5-a-side, you knew about it. And all like. But then, as I say, when he became the manager, I was thinking, if he's the same manager as he was as a player in the dressing room, he'd be a great guy to play for. And obviously, I played for him. I loved it. He was a good guy. He always had a bit of banter. He kept that side of him a little bit, to be fair. Mm-hmm. Obviously, tone it down, being a manager, because you're in the end. But the training ground, he'd want to have that banter, and then in the warm-up and stuff. And then when it became work time in training, it was work time. As soon as it finished, if you wanted to have a little bit of a laugh and a banter with him, he would. But he made his players know that, yeah, he can do that. But when it's work time, when it's a serious time, we're serious. Which that's one of the things that Hess was really good at. And as you say, the seasons that we were there, it was one of them. I've always felt like we just weren't quite there, though. And it was like one of them hard things on the Hess. And obviously, I've never really sat down with Hess after and had a beer and spoke about it, because always you go back and, like you say, you think about the seasons, and I think it was one of them. You can never really put your finger on why. Why could we just not get there? And it probably comes down to it, like any level. Maybe you just weren't consistent enough. I
think that was another season where we had some weird games. I think we was at home to Wimbledon, and we was 4-1 up, lost 5-4, or 3-1 up, lost 5. We went to Accrington, scored 4, but lost by 3. There was some mental games, and I think Hesse was trying to play the right way, if we're trying to put a label on it, which was to get it down and be expansive. But I think it probably left us, looking back now with the benefit of a decade's hindsight, it left us too exposed defensively, which is why we was conceding so many goals.
And it was, and I think that the season that we ended and we just missed out, which I think I remember quite right, it was the Macclesfield at home game, was it? We lost 4-2 or something.
That was it. I think it was them and Barnet, wasn't it? And they were both right down the bottom, and we lost. And we were saying, if we win, we just got to take like 2 points, 4 points out of the 2 home games, and we're in. And we lost both. Yeah, I think you're spot on.
I think we had I think the reason I remember the Macclesfield at home, the 4-2, because I didn't start. I was on the bench, and I came on at half time, and it's when I done my knee. I done my knee like 6 minutes into the game, the second half of coming on. I'm pretty sure it was Macclesfield. Macclesfield, I think we lost 4-2 or something like that.
Correct. We lost back-to-back home games, Barnet 4-2 and then Macclesfield 4-2. You was on the bench and you came on after 46 minutes for Simon King and you came back off after 55 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I remember the game so well. But obviously how that season ended, obviously, as I say, literally we just weren't consistent enough.
That was the goal difference season, wasn't it?
Yeah. And
so literally a point in either of them, we were in the playoffs.
You looked at them games and you think they were games we definitely probably should have at least got points from. Maybe don't be disrespectful that you should have won, but yeah, they probably were at the time, how well we had been doing. And then it didn't work out that way. And obviously to miss out on goal difference when you concede 8 goals against them sort of teams, then you probably don't deserve to be in the playoffs that season. And obviously for me, that ended disappointing with not making the playoffs. But then obviously that's the game that actually done the knee injury in after being on the pitch for 10 minutes or whatever it was. So it was one that obviously sticks in my head, but for double bad reasons really for not quite making the playoffs. And then obviously,
of course, it must be doubly frustrating, like you say, because if you're injured, you can't help. You just have to sit there and watch, and you can't control it. And the worst thing as a footballer, regardless of what level you play, is if you can't control things, it's horrible. You left Gillingham for the first time, the start of what turned out to be the title-winning season, ironically. You went to Wimbledon, and I think it's fair to say became a club legend there as well. You ended up spending 5 years, I think it was, 25 seasons, 2012-13 right through to 2018. What was it like at Wimbledon? Obviously, because this is a team and we all see the stuff on social media, the MK Dons link and how Wimbledon had to start again and rise back up through non-league into the Football League. And I think it's been a club that's only ever been on an upward trajectory until, unfortunately, this season they got relegated, from League One into League Two along with the Gills. So that must have been heartbreaking for you almost twice. But what was your time like, if you can sum it up in a few words? Obviously, because not talk, it's a Gillingham chat, but I can't not talk about it when you was there for the best part of half a decade.
Phenomenal club. Is literally when people say a family club, it literally is, because of the story that it is and everything behind it and where they come from and the adversity they had to face many years ago and how they come. And obviously it's a fan-owned club and the fans are involved in everything that goes on. So which it probably still happens now. Obviously I haven't been there for a few years, but whenever you sign at the start of the season, they have like the directors or whatever there, and they tell you the story and the history and how much it means. The staff, the fans, everyone that's been involved in the whole system. So you get a little insight from day dot. Your first day of pre-season is that talk happen. Yeah. You've been there for 5 years or it's your first day. Everyone gets that same story again every year. And it's embedded. But it's a great place to play football. I loved it. They were brilliant with me. As you say, I was there 5 years. Had some great times. Obviously, fortunate and lucky enough to have another playoff win with them, with a club that meant a lot to me, and obviously to able to do the playoff twice and captain 2 teams that when I finally hang my boots up and look and say these 2 clubs are literally so close to my heart and mean so much, been a massive part of my career. I'll be proud to look back and say that I played for them 2 clubs for a very long time, and obviously played, I think it's about 400 and something games for the 2 clubs, which
put together, yeah.
I look back and think I'm really proud and honoured to say that I played for both clubs. And
because that's not because you remember, to interject again, like back in the day, like when we was growing up in the Premier League, you had like Ryan Giggs, one club man, Steven Gerrard, that type of thing. I'm not counting him going to the MLS at the end of his career. I mean, in England, but he wasn't quite a one club man. But to play basically 200 games for 2 different teams, and like you say, to captain them both at Wembley and to win both games as well is a phenomenal achievement. And I tip my hat to you. And this is all coming off the back of what we've spoken about earlier in the chat: knee injuries and pneumonia. So they keep coming back from that. It's a brilliant story, and like you say, you'll probably appreciate it more when you finally do decide that the time's right to give it up. But you've mentioned Wembley, you've mentioned Stevenage, Gills, Wimbledon. So forgive me if I'm wrong, you played there 4 times.
4 times, yeah.
So you beat Kidderminster 3-2 in the 2007 trophy final.
Yeah.
You captained Gills to beat Shrewsbury 1-0 2009 League Two playoff final. You captained Wimbledon to beat Plymouth in the 2016 League Two playoff final. And you also had the privilege of playing against Tottenham in an FA Cup tie in 2018. And that's your only defeat at Wembley. That's I don't want this to sound disrespectful, Barry, but there's some top level players, elite level players. And I'm not saying you're not a very good footballer because you're a Gills legend, you're an EFL legend for me. But there's players that play in the Premier League and for their, in Champions Leagues, Europa Leagues that don't get to play at Wembley. You've managed to do it 4 times and you've won 75% of them games. The only team that beat you included the likes of Kieran Trippier, Jan Vertonghen, Eric Lamela, Moussa Dembele and Harry Kane from the start. And I think after 65 minutes, you were 0-0.
Yeah, we were. And I think we hit the bar.
I think you did. Because Cody was still Cody was still with you then, wasn't he, as well?
Yeah. And I think it was Jimmy Abdu that hit the bar in about the 40th minute of the first half. And I think it was the only time we got in their half. But we and all that. And then obviously, I think it was like 3 goals in 9 minutes or something against Tottenham. But it was another experience. But I think if there was a trophy on it, we might have won. That's the only reason I didn't win there, because there wasn't a trophy.
Because you weren't the final. If it was a final, you'd have probably nicked it 1-0.
Final. So, but yeah, no, I've been, as I say, I'm blessed and so fortunate and honoured to be able to play there 4 times. And as I said earlier in the interview, any boy just dream to play at Wembley, and to captain a team is, well, gives you goosebumps thinking about it, and you want to pinch yourself to think.
So was you captain in all 4?
No, I wasn't. For Stevenage, I wasn't captain.
So Stevenage was the only one you wasn't the skipper.
Yeah. So,
but still, 4 appearances, 3 as captain, 3 wins. Only team you lost to was Tottenham, and after keeping a clean sheet for the best part of 70 minutes, there's probably worse. There's worse records to have at Wembley.
Yeah, definitely. So it's not too bad. There's some stats that come out, and you never know if they're real. I remember being in a dressing room. I think it was for Gills.
Right.
When I for the second time, and we played Doncaster away, and in one of the programmes it said, I remember where you read a little bit of whatever they say about you.
Oh yeah, they're usually wrong, aren't they? I always find as an away fan reading about Gills players, they're usually not right.
That's wrong then, because
they said sorry.
the first man to win 3 finals at Wembley with 3 different teams. And I remember screenshotting it and sending it to my wife, and she was like, "Is that real?" I'm like, "I don't know, but it's in the programme."
Who cares?
So it's one of them stats that you're probably going to find it hard to hunt down and find out if it's real. I read it and I'm thinking that if that is real, I'll definitely take that to my grave with me one day.
I'd imagine even if there are other people, Barry, there can't be many that have done it, even if there is another 1 or 2 out there. So you're probably still in fairly esteemed company, regardless of whether you're not the only one. But yeah, just take it as you're the only one. Don't bother researching it. It's fine.
No, that's it.
Right, we've gone Wembley. We've got a couple of questions. This has gone on a lot longer than I've just realised what the time is, and I really appreciate your time. And I hope that Gills fans, Wimbledon fans, maybe Dorking fans, because we're going to talk about them briefly as well, enjoy it as much as I've enjoyed talking to you. It's fair to say in the last few years of your career, you've probably come across 2 of the biggest characters the EFL's ever seen. One I know you're really good friends with. Again, I follow your social media, and that's Bayo, who's finally hung up his boots at the age of 40. So you've still got 3 years left. And the other is a man who is probably best described in a politest way as Marmite, who was your gaffer for a season?
2.
2 seasons. And that's Steve Evans.
Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about both, what they're like and what we see, obviously, what we see and what you see that's perhaps different away from football or the same, maybe.
You've hit it now on the head there. Same. Bayo is what you see is what you get.
Yeah.
He's the most down-to-earth, loving guy. Obviously, I say loving, but the geezer can be horrible when he wants to. But what you see takes all the time out for all the fans and people, the kids that want pictures, people, this and that with Bayo. He's such...
That ties in, just to interject quickly, because obviously his last appearance at Preschool was about 2.5 months ago when he came down with Wickham. And I remember he was there taking photos, selfies, whatever, signing shirts with Gills fans, I think for about an hour after the full-time whistle was the rumour that I heard that he was still in the ground. So, but sorry, carry on.
That doesn't surprise me, because he is that man who, regardless if he had somewhere to get to, he's not one that will shoot off and do that. He will literally try and sign every autograph and take every photo with the kids if everyone's there. If there was a big line, he probably wouldn't go until the end. So he is literally, what you see with Bayo is what you get. And obviously, as you say, I've been fortunate enough to play with him twice in my career. Had some good battles against him as well. And we're great friends. We have been. Probably the story of us becoming super close is probably for another conversation if you've got time's gone on. So how we became real close is a real good story as well. So that's another one. But I'm happy to tell you the story if you want to hear it, if you got time. But
yeah, go for it. Yeah, obviously it's your time as well. So yeah, if you can, I'm conscious that we're running out of a 2 hour. I put a 2 hour time limit on this, Gills fans, and thought that would be absolutely loads. But it's I think we've got about 25 minutes left. So
yeah,
go.
We get it all. But yeah, so I can't remember the scoreline. We played Accrington away for Gills, and I think it was like 6-2 or something like this. I can't even remember what year it was. I think it was under Hess. It might have been. I'm not quite sure. But anyway, we played Accrington away. We 3 or 4-0 down after about 20 minutes, I think, 25 minutes. And the ball happened to go up to Bayo in just on the halfway line. And
wasn't the 7-4 one, was it?
It might have been. I'm not quite sure. Was we 3 or 4-0 down early doors? I'm not quite sure.
We was 3-0 down before half time. Yeah. Oh no, we wasn't 3-0 down. No. It looked like it was 3-2 at half time. You started, sure. Bayo scored, Mark Bentley got sent off.
But anyway, the ball's gone up to Bayo.
Right.
I felt that he's give it away too easy, or it's come off him too easy. They've nicked the ball off him, gone past and scored or whatever. And I've ended up shouting from the edge of the 18-yard box where I am. Probably not as nice as this. You need to do better and get hold of that and protect the ball. That's not good enough. He shouted back to me, who are you talking to? Blah, blah, blah. And we ended up walking towards each other and squaring up. Obviously, it's not great, obviously, to say the story of from fan players, obviously, squaring up to each other.
But you can laugh about it now.
In the story that we're telling is all right. So we're squaring up, we're walking towards each other. But as we're walking to them, we're getting closer and closer. I'm thinking, Baz, what are you doing?
He's a bit bigger than you, yeah.
Yeah, he's going to pick you up and crush you. And so we ended up walking towards you and getting like quite close, and our players were like just splitting us up. And I think there was a few minutes or so until it was half time. And I remember going into the dressing room at Aki, which ain't the nicest dressing rooms anyway. And then sitting down, and I'm sitting opposite Bayo, and I'm like sorting my shin pad on my sock out. And as I'm doing that, I look up, and he's still glaring at me across the dressing room like that. And he's literally looking straight through me, and I'm thinking, oh my God, this is not going to end well. The game happened. It might be the 7-4. We ended up having a half go, but we still lost. So Hess is mad at the end of the game or whatever. I've gone mental. And then Bayo's come up to me. He's got his top off and his shorts on. I'm getting changed as well. And he's like, I want to see you after you've had a shower outside. And I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to do here? Better do some press ups or something. But we've gone outside, and he said, the first thing he said to me is like, I don't like the way you spoke to me, but I'm going to give you this. I respect you because you're the first ever man that stood up to me and squared up. Yeah, and all like that. So then we got onto the bus and all that, and we were sitting in different areas, and he moved someone away from the seat that he was in. Said, Baz, come and sit here. And I was like, oh, I'm not again, surely on the way home. Ended up sitting next to him, having a laugh and a joke. By the time we got off the journey, we was having a laugh and a joke. And then he still, like, as we walked off, he got me in the headlock as he does everyone. As I remember, Skip, don't talk to me like that, though, ever again. But, yeah, you're blessed, and I've got major love for you and all that. So then that was how it all started, and we ended up being super close as the years and that have gone on. And he he's told that story many a times to people when I've been there. So it's a great story with Mayo. But as I said, he's probably the best guy and role model for anyone, and the time that he's got for people that spend their hard-earned money, and that he gives a lot back to the people as well. So he's a great guy.
Yeah, and you can tell again, like we said when you spoke about Mark Simpson, you can tell straight away how fond you are of him, and I think that's great to see because, you know, footballers, particularly at lower level, tend to move around quite a lot. That's the way of the world in lower league football. You see it every year. You know, clubs have different huge turnovers of players, so to be able to build up a rapport and have a close friendship with someone is really, really good. The other person I want to talk about is Mr. Marmite, Steve Evans. Obviously, you came back to Gills 2018, so you played under Steve Lovell first, and then Steve Evans took over start of 1920.
Yeah.
I think he said something in the press regarding you'd played enough games and a contract either when he came in or at the end of his first season in charge, and he found it strange that there was a clause in your contract. I might be wrong, so correct me if I am, that you played so many games so it triggered another year.
Yeah.
And he seemed to be a bit surprised about that. So it was almost, to me as a fan, it sounded like he was almost doubting your ability to be able to play so many games. I think he made comments as well when you eventually left, because I think you came off injured I think you picked up a knock in the Sunderland game, which was the final game before COVID locked us all down.
Yeah.
I'm sure he made comments about, you know, he's at an age now where it's taking him longer to get over injuries. I'm not confident he can play so many games next season. Firstly, how did you find Steve in general? And also, as a professional footballer, how do you feel when you hear managers come out in public and say that about you? Because surely that's almost a slight on your character as a professional footballer.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, I see the comments that have gone on, and obviously I'm not one to sit badmouth people. The thing you bring up about the contract was something that I sat down with Steve Lovell and the chairman when I came back. They offered me a year, and the chairman, and that was said, and I said, "Oh, what if I play so many games? Would there be a possibility to sign a new contract?" And the chairman was like, "Yeah, the type of guy, and that I know you are.
Yeah.
If you play XYZ games, then you get another year extension. So, which that's in your contract, and I think if that's in your contract and you play them games and you deserve to earn an extra year contract, regardless if you're 21, 31 or whatever, that's something that you've earned. It's not just a given. It wasn't something that someone just said, 'Oh, here's an extension for nothing.' I earned the extra year. Obviously, then Steve Evans came in and obviously was amazed that it was in there. I think mainly because of my age, and the chairman came out, and to be fair at the time, and said, "Well, he's played X, Y amount of games, so why shouldn't he have it?"
Yeah.
And then obviously I ended up playing, and then I ended up leaving the club, which, to put the record straight, I never ever wanted to leave the football club. That's why I came out and said I thought I was going to end my career.
Yeah, that was the thing we spoke about at the beginning. It might have been before we started recording, and I said I did a little bit of research, and I found that Instagram post from you, and you said I was convinced that you was convinced. Sorry, that was it. You was going to sign for the Gills, and you was going to stay here until you hung up your boots. The thing that don't make sense to me, like you say, is you played. I'm just having a look. Sorry, 2 seconds. That 18-19 season, which was the season under Steve Lovell, that then triggered the contract extension. You played 44 games. So I think we'd have probably played around 50, 52 in total with the cup games. So you've missed 8 or 10, give it absolute tops. And then ironically, you played 35 of the 43 that we played under Steve Evans. So was it a case of, just proving him wrong, or was it just a case of, I want to play football, I'm going to make the right back shirt or even you played left back a lot, didn't you, in your second spell as well, I think?
Yeah, I did under Steve Lovell. I didn't so much with Steve Evans, but
because who did we have in that side under Steve Lovell? It would have been you left back, because poor old Bradley Garmston kept getting injured, didn't he? Was it Luke? I think it was Luke O'Neill the other side, wasn't it? Luke O'Neill, and then we had Connor Ogilvie, I think, was played a few games, and then we had Max, and was it Gabby Zakwani, I think, was there then?
Yeah, Gab was there, yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, obviously that happened, and then Steve Evans come in, and obviously as you say, I played 35 games or whatever it was. And it was a weird one, because I always used to say to him when we had meetings and that or whatever, and when you hear him come out and say interviews like that, I still feel I only played because there was no one else, or no one else that, as much as I always used to say, I didn't think he rated me as much as some of the other managers I played for. Regardless, I don't know what it was, my age or whatever, or clash of personalities, I'm not really sure. I do think there's a couple of other issues of why he didn't really get on with me as much.
And I'm asking, I'm just chucking this out there. Do you think it was almost the case because he came in and said, I don't understand why a player of this age has been given a contract extension, and then because you were proving him wrong and almost making yourself undroppable, that he probably was trying to save face a little bit, so he didn't, praise you as much as maybe he should have done based on your performances?
Yeah, I don't know. He was this one that he didn't really want to give credit to me, and I think, I'm not quite sure, but relationship I had with the club, the fans, the chairman, I don't know if he liked that as much. I'm not sure, but there was something that I just didn't feel comfortable, that he never rated me, didn't want to praise me too much, but I was selected, like you say, most weeks under him still.
Yeah.
And in time. And then obviously at the end of the year, when my contract was up, obviously I was going into a meeting in my career for the first time, probably, if I'm more deep down and honest, that I didn't feel that he was going to offer me something.
Yeah.
But obviously I had the year left. I still had a year left.
Because you could have stayed for the 2021 season, couldn't you?
Yeah. I was going into there, but I was thinking this ain't going to be positive, because I know how he feels, or how I think he feels.
Yeah.
And obviously he came in there, and obviously I don't want to go into how it all went, but in short story was that I wasn't going to be in his plans, and I'd be training.
That seemed to be the way that it came out in the press for every player that he didn't rate. He would say, "Oh, we've had a chat. It's honest. It's amicable. I've told X, Y, or Z they're not going to play, so they're free to look elsewhere."
Which I would have understood that. Obviously, I still felt like I had a lot to offer, but at my age. But then he said that I'd be training with the kids and not with the first team. I'd be with the kids, and I'm like, I don't deserve that.
No, there's got to be a level of respect for a player that's played 200 games for this football club at the end of the day.
Games that season for him, and wore my heart on my sleeve as I do every game. And I think that was a time where I said, well, that won't be for me then. So I probably need to have a conversation with you and the chairman, because I'm 34. I felt like I've given everything to this club, and in my career, I don't deserve to be training with kids. No disrespect to the youth team. But you're a person that's captained this team and played 200 games for this club and been at Wembley with us. And it's just disrespectful to a professional footballer with that amount of experience. I felt like I could play week in, week out. Obviously, if I wasn't going to play, at least give me the opportunity to train with the first team, maybe even end up breaking my way in, like 35 games before. But that wasn't to be, and obviously I ended up having a conversation with the chairman and agreeing, obviously, to leave. And it wasn't, as I say, I didn't never expect to leave. I wanted to end my career there. I thought I was going to end my career there. But obviously in the situation of being told that wasn't going to be in the plans, I trained with the kids. I just felt like that wasn't the most respectful thing for them, not to say them, for him to say. And I didn't feel like that was right. And I still felt like in my career I had a lot to offer.
So this is just to make it clear for the Gills fans, because obviously I know the chairman gets a lot of stick. This was on Steve Evans. This wasn't Paul Scally. This was Steve Evans saying, you're training with a youth team, you're not in our plans. Basically, we're just going to let you rot.
Steve Evans made the decision as a manager, and he makes the calls. And I had a conversation with the chairman, and I sat and had lunch with him, to be fair, the whole time. I was up there for a long time, and he was like, mate, I'm gutted for you. I'm gutted that you're leaving. And I think the chairman felt the same when I came back under Loves. I think he felt I would probably be ending my career here. And obviously I've had a great relationship with the chairman, and obviously he's been brilliant. And obviously, it was a decision that the manager made, and obviously, he's got to respect the manager, regardless of how we felt about.
And like you say, you want to go and still play football at 34, 35 years of age.
He's got to respect his manager's decision. So obviously, I've walked out, and I don't hold no grudges. I shook Steve Evans' hand and I shook the chairman's hand, and obviously I had to move on. I was gutted and deeply hurt at the time to be leaving, but it was something that I felt at the time was right for me as a player still, because I wanted to offer something, and for my family, I felt I could still go and play. And obviously the opportunity to sign for Dorking come up with a couple of other opportunities, and I chose to go to Dorking, and obviously that's worked out lovely as well. So that's been a great club and a great journey.
Another promotion. You're getting good at it, aren't you?
But that's it. So it's as you say, the low that it came from, the character I am, I rose above that and weren't going to sit at home and sulk because I'd been told that I weren't wanted by someone to sit at home and moan about it. I was
just another case of saying, let's go and prove people wrong again and show people that we can still keep doing it.
And want to go there and play football and offer someone what I felt like I could offer was 110%, which I've give in every team I play for, and I wanted to give that to someone. And obviously Dorking came in, and that worked out great with me now, and a fantastic club with another amazing story and history behind them already in a short career or lifespan that they've had so far.
You've got thingies down there, isn't he, as well now? He used to be at Gills as well. Darren Oldacre, isn't he?
Yeah, Darren Oldacre's there, and he's been great for us since we signed him. So yeah, it's a promotion winning year as well. So it's been a great year.
Yeah, and captain again.
Yeah, captain again. Yeah, so another
captain lifting trophies in May. It's becoming familiar tale, isn't it? So just quickly before we finish up, and like I said again, I really appreciate it. It's nearly 9:30. This has been going on for the best part of an hour and 3/4 now, which is phenomenal. You are at Dorking. You just won promotion back from the National League South into the National League, so you're one step away from being a Football League player again at the grand old age of 37. How many more pages are left in the Barry Fuller story?
Well, I don't want to put a number on it, but the whole time I feel
you're not going to try and beat. You're not going to try and beat Bayo and then ride off into the sunset.
Loads of people ask that, Matt, and it's something that you can't really answer. And I've always said the time where I feel like I'm not doing my profession or my job to the best how I feel I should do it, then it's probably time to hang up rather than hang on to something.
Or that time when you stop enjoying it, I imagine as well.
Yeah, and the whole time I'm doing the job that the team or the manager's asking me to do, I feel like I'm doing to the best that I can, and I know I can play. The day wingers start running past me too easy or I'm mistiming them tackles, I think it's the time to probably hang my boots up.
I'm sure there's a few more left wingers are going to get crunched yet before you give it up.
I feel as fit as I've ever been, to be honest, and I'm not even just saying that at 37. The programme that we have at Dorking is phenomenal. How they strength and conditioning coaches and the coaches and the manager and how they look. But I'm enjoying my football. I've probably never been so attacking, to be fair, in my whole life at the way we play. We do play some good football and get forward. I feel like I could play for another 5-10 years, to be honest with you. But obviously, I touch wood and I count my blessings that I'm still playing at 37.
Yeah,
I'm going into the National League with them. Excited. It's the unknown for the club and a lot of the players. So it's going to be a big, tough season, but exciting season for us. And hopefully I'll stay fit well, and we'll see what happens at the end of next season.
Absolutely. And obviously us Gills fans will always keep an eye on how you're getting on, how your club's getting on, because we love Barry Fuller at the end of the day, and that's not to blow smoke up your arse, but for what you've done for us, what you've done for Wimbledon, just the career you've had, like we said, and it's all been encapsulated tonight, and it's been great fun listening, and I really appreciate your time again. Gills fans, I really hope you've enjoyed watching this and listening to Barry's stories about his career in depth, as much as I've enjoyed sitting here talking to him, researching, doing the questions. Again, thank you to Barry. You can check him out. He is on Twitter, he is on Instagram. I'll put his details in the description at the bottom of the YouTube video. Please drop it a like. Please keep subscribing. We're about 50 away now from 2,000 subscribers, which is frankly ridiculous. I still struggle to get my head around the fact that amount of people want to listen to me talking about football and generally moan about Gills' performances on a regular basis. It's been a real pleasure, Baz. Like I say, I can't thank you enough.
No, mate, it's been a pleasure talking, going through some stories and the ups and the downs. And as I say, I've loved my time at the club. Hopefully, one day, you never know, I may be back in a different kind of capacity. You never know, or if not, just come in and watch the team, and hopefully they can be successful next year and get back into the League One where they deserve to be.
That's it, Gills fans. That is enough from me and Barry tonight. As you can see, it was broad daylight when we started. Barry's now sat in the dark. Looks like he's under stairs cupboard, bless him. Like I said, like, subscribe, please share it. There's some brilliant stories, whether you're a Gills fan, a Barnet fan, a Charlton fan, a Wimbledon fan, a Dorking fan. I think I've named all his clubs. We'll be back soon, hopefully, with another Gills in the Blood chats too. I'm not going to divulge who just yet, but this one's been really enjoyable. We'll see you soon, but until next time, up the Gills.